My name is Andrew Castle, if you don't know me, and I'm the new Kelly Thompson. I'm not sure I can pull this off as well as she did, though. But Kelly retired, and they asked me to stay on as the new student agency lead. So I'm now student agency and part technology instead of being all technology. But I'm glad you're here. Thank you. I know this is a smaller middle school crowd than last year, and that's fine. A lot of people couldn't make it today. We were getting some emails already about folks saying they wanted to do entrepreneurial for middle school and asking if it was recorded, so we're recording it so they can still participate. But thank you for being here in person. Yesterday's high school training, I'd been through some of this training in bits and pieces over the last 4 years. I never sat through the whole day, and I was wowed. I had no idea. Dr. Ratliff, who I want to thank very much for doing this, is amazing. I had no idea how talented she was. I learned so much yesterday. A couple things, housekeeping things about the changes this year. Some of you did CMPS as well, so we are no longer participating in community problem solving as our funding. As you know, ARI grant is now officially over, so a lot of the funding changes are going on this year. It was decided that the entrepreneurial program was extremely important for a lot of reasons. Where we live, Eastern Kentucky is facing lots of challenges. We have lots of issues, and entrepreneurship is needed badly. And what better way to start with our youth? Because, listen, they're geniuses. We have talented teachers, we have great community members, but our kids are wonderful. And what you guys are doing through the kids can make such a real difference, especially, again, for the unique challenges we're facing in Eastern Kentucky. So it was decided that this program could not stop, had to continue. So here we are. And I want to thank you for that because it is important. The funding changes, all right? Whereas before, there was some pretty specific stipulations on how entrepreneur money could be spent. You had to apply for the grant and materials. This year, again, the funding has changed, but we were able to come up with $2,000 per district that can be spent on your entrepreneurial program. And the stipulations have, for the most part, been removed. How that $2,000 is spent is, for the most part, up to the district. So you need to get with your innovation coordinator and you all work out how this money is going to be spent. Now, I'll email this out after this training, but I'll tell you that every district has to sort of submit a plan with a draft budget on how you decide to spend that $2,000, okay? The only things that are written in stone, it cannot be spent on gift cards in any way, and it cannot be used for travel out of the region. So to go to state competition of some sort, it can't be used for that, all right? It can be used for middle school because you folks have the Entrepreneur Fair at the Sportsplex, which currently is going to be, I think, the first week in December, we think. We don't have a solid date yet. In fact, if you all want to give me some input on the best day that week, let me know.
Middle school is at the end of the month of November.
I thought we'd...
High school is the beginning of December.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. So the last week in the month of November is middle school. If there's a specific date that suits you better, let me know, because all the dates were open and we can kind of choose. So travel to and from that for you and your teams comes out of that $2,000. Also, travel to and from the summit comes out of that. Okay. Now, I know that sounds like there's not a lot, but travel isn't that bad. Okay. Whatever's left can be spent as you all decide per your plan. If you want to spend it on materials for the kids as a kickstart, fine. So talk with your innovation coordinator and figure out a budget plan. They can help you with the travel and the amount and the estimates on that. Okay. Any budget questions or specifics about that I can try and answer real quick? Talk to your innovation coordinator. They'll work it out with you. But make sure you have a voice. Don't let them decide for you. Make sure you have a voice in that. Since you guys are doing the work, make sure you have some input into how that's spent.
I began in economics education. I've been teaching for 27 years. And the K-5 Mini Society from the Kaufman Foundation began my entrepreneurial pursuits in Pike County, Ashland, Boyd County, up and through that area. I had a grant that allowed me the opportunity to go in and train teachers on entrepreneurial efforts where they created in the elementary, anywhere from 3 through 6, they created a mini society within their classroom. And in this society, they learned very quickly that in order for you to partake of the benefits, you had to work. And how wonderful that would be, wouldn't it, if we all realized that we have to be a contributor and that it takes all of us to be a contributor for our world to be better. And so students very quickly, even if they had no intention and didn't want to be involved, didn't want to work the project, they very quickly realized that there was no way for them to get an income. And so even if they hadn't planned to be an entrepreneur or work in any way, they very quickly realized they weren't making an income, so what could they do? So they would look and see maybe a business beside them needed to expand, and they'd offer their space. Well, you can have my space, and so thus we had rent coming in. And so, I mean, it was amazing the types of opportunities that students very quickly realized they need to be a participant in some way, or they weren't going to be able to get an income, thus they weren't going to be able to be involved in market days. And so that was a big incentive. And so it worked very much like you experience in a society. Some did extremely well, some did not do so well, but the point is that we all had distributed income because in some way you had to take part. And so this program went, you know, I think I had, in essence, maybe 24 different counties participating. And so then that calmed down. That was in the 90s and into 2000. 2000, I think the last one was 2006. And so then all of a sudden, there was a gap of time, and I contacted Kelly Thompson because we at the university, as well as most of the region, was tasked with reshaping our Appalachian region. So the SOAR initiative came about 5 years ago. And we were all at a meeting. We all attended a huge meeting, a summit, if you will, that was about what can you individually do. So universities were tasked with what can you do to help with the SOAR initiative, what can businesses do, what can educational leaders do. We have something going on in our communities all throughout eastern Kentucky especially, but Kentucky in general. And the coal situation is changing our economies and our communities, and we as a state have to do something about it. And so one of the things that I took away from that, and I went back to my dean and said, was I believe there may be an opportunity for us to do entrepreneurship. And he said, well, pursue that and see what you can do. And at that time, Kelly Thompson was in Pikeville. She had been the person that I had worked with previously as an instructional supervisor to actually do a big project there with the Kaufman Foundation. And so I came back to Kelly and said, do you think there would be interest in entrepreneurship? You know, we had such an interest earlier. Do you think there might still be those teachers, that cadre of teachers who are interested? And she said, I really think so, Janet. I think with the changes in the economy and all that's going on, it might be a really good time. So we started there with a pilot project, and we had a couple of schools within that district, and we wanted to see how we would manage it and what we could do, and it was successful. And then when Kelly came here, that gave us the opportunity to work again together and to take it to many more counties. And so that's how it all began, is it began with the SOAR initiative, really, from my previous work with Econ Ed and that grant, to know that there's an interest. And the things that I saw with the students that it involved was so remarkable, in that the students that didn't excel at other things seemed to really, really do well with entrepreneurship. So the outstanding, you know, science student or the outstanding math student, that's not who really was the outstanding entrepreneurship student. It was the student that really didn't take interest in many of the other areas. And you saw us reaching students that otherwise weren't really being reached. And so that's what I think is the great thing about entrepreneurship. You don't have to be great at any one thing, but if you're passionate about something you love, you enjoy, you can all of a sudden emerge as a star. And I think that really helps everyone see the benefit of entrepreneurship. Creating jobs and making a difference in your communities is vitally important, and especially if we're going to rebuild an economy. And that's what we're essentially doing, is we're trying to rebuild and figure out where we want to be years from now. And it's with the generations that we're educating currently. And so that's kind of how it all began. And here's where we are with all of you. And so that's the background. So MSU has a mission to serve our region, and then in addition is to do anything we can do to support the SOAR initiative in our state. And this is how I, in my college, am doing that. And you know, there are many other activities and initiatives and programs in place to help support that, but this is the one thing that I felt that I could offer a value with what they were trying to do. The regional engagement emphasis, you know, the counties that KVEC serves cross over many of the counties that I serve. And so I always laugh and say our 22 county region and beyond, because we pick up a few along the way, and that's perfectly okay. We have the KVEC partnership, and then we have expanded, thankfully, into the high school. So that gives us a new opportunity. My love and my passion was always to begin in middle school, because statistics and research says that middle school is when students begin to develop an aptitude for what they're going to do later in life. And I always believe that we should plant the seed of entrepreneurship right when they're making those decisions, that no matter what they become, and I want them to go on to college, I want them to go on and get expertise in whatever area they want to, but think about always in the back of your mind, how could I be an entrepreneur with this? How could I create jobs from this? How could I change my community from which I came and I want to go back to one day? And so that's why I always wanted to start in middle school, but branching out into the high school gives us a wonderful way to continue the effort, as well as restart their interest and get them on board. But the middle school is where we begin to, I think, start to see students think about long term. You know, what do I want to be? What do I want to do? And that's why it started there. You know, because many of my dean, his first question was, well, why don't we go to high school? And I said, but you don't understand. I really think if we start in the middle school, that will continue then. And we'll have a core group of students who are growing up in that kind of environment and understand it, and then they'll want to do it in high school. And so that will help the teachers be encouraged to then also get involved. And I said, I think it's a good thing to start it early on. And so we're crossing our fingers, but we hope we're grooming entrepreneurs out there for later to come. To continue on then, so that's kind of the background. This is my 22 county service region, which, like I said, in many cases crosses with KVEC, but there's a few that doesn't and so forth, but that's okay. We'll kind of serve the whole area if we can, whole state if necessary. These are the counties that have been involved in the past, and I'm sure you all see your names up there. And then this was part of the STARS program, the Students Transforming Appalachia with Real World Solutions, part of the I cannot speak today because I'm on camera, the Appalachian Renaissance Initiative and Race to the Top grant. And then this was just a link where Kelly actually kind of spoke and told a little bit more about it. But for all of you who are new, this is part of a project-based learning. Okay, so essentially there can be collaboration in all curriculum areas. There's a common theme, but individual projects. It is aligned on the middle school level with the Common Core in math and language arts, and I can send you that if you would so desire. It is a huge document that I choose not to print in any shape, form, or fashion, but I can get that to you if need be. But we actually matched it up with the English language arts, mathematics, and review standards for practical living. It's project-based in that we begin with the driving question or the challenge. You know, what's the need in our area, in our community, or in our school? You know, because different students pick up those needs depending on what their interest is. And then with that, what do you need to know? The inquiry and innovation. We are using 21st century skills. There's a student voice and choice, feedback and revision, and then publicly presented product. And so that's where they actually get in front of my judges, or before me, get in front of your judges, depending on how you handle it in your own schools. And we'll talk about whether or not you want to have a fair, or whether or not some of these individuals have done it based on, maybe they bring judges in. You know, it's done differently at different schools. And so for those that are new, we'll kind of give opportunities for the people who are returning to tell you and share with you about that. Students self-select a business, goods or services, and you'll also hear it called products and services. I think that adaptation, I was always taught that products could be a good or a service, but I hear more often the term products for it. And so I always kind of say that. Determine the business organization, sole proprietorship or partnership. Yes, they could be a corporation, but here's why I kind of say please don't, or please consider it well, because if you have 6 students, let's say, that form a corporation, you know that there's going to be a couple who don't get as actively involved. And the success stories that I have seen most often come from a student who hadn't done well in other areas that all of a sudden got so involved and passionate about what they were doing, and they could share that. If you get them in one of 6, they're going to be stifled again. And maybe that's what they've experienced their whole life. So I caution people on corporation use, because I think that if you really want to see what your students can do, making it much smaller and allowing those that have not had that voice and that opportunity to emerge themselves, I think it really helps to have it either as a sole proprietorship or a partnership, which can only be up to 3 generally. Then we have a business plan or data notebook, and what it really is a folder that actually has all the required documents in it, because my judges have to see that you did a business plan. So rather than a paper, we actually do the different components of the business plan. So there's some marketing in there, there's an advertisement piece, there is like a little summary page that lets you see the actual plan itself and all the parts, the name of the business, what they offer, who's the owners, those kinds of details. And so we will actually cover that in your data notebook, or I'm sorry, in your binder in just a few moments, and walk through those documents. Presentation board gives my judges and your students the opportunity to showcase what they've done in a very visual way, and it gives my judges the opportunity then to see it very quickly, and they know kind of the heart of it all. And so we ask for a trifold board that's attractive, and then it has certain components on it. And so I give you a sample within your notebook, within your binder, that kind of details that so that they can see. And it actually allows for a little prototype to be at the bottom so that my judges then, because like I said, one thing that I've learned is listening to the feedback from the faculty, is that sometimes my judges, let me back up, the judges are actually my students. And I'll get to a slide that talks about that, but they're actually my college students who have gone through the same type of educational activity as your students in content, only on the college level. So my students have to create a business plan all along the way, and they're learning the same things, and so then they're able to judge, because by then they have presented and they're done with their business plan, and say that they know everything that your students have gone through. So they have a good idea about the questions to ask and that sort of thing throughout the experience. But the funny thing while we're on it is that my students create one of 3 things most generally: a restaurant, some form of entertainment, or a bar. As you can guess, it's what? Something to occupy a college student's time when they're not studying, and they have a huge investment. They have almost such a huge investment that you can't make money back, especially very quickly. And so it's such a wonderful opportunity for them to come and listen to your students, because they realize very quickly that they did too complicated of things, and that they could have scaled back and really looked better at the needs, because your students are finding needs all over the place that they can meet, and they can sell and make money. One of my students was amazed that in a week's time, one of the students made a couple $100. And they're like, wow. And I don't know at what point my students' projects will make money, but it's a long time down the road. And then at the end, mine understand why we don't have some kind of lodge at the lake, and why we don't have bars on Main Street, and why we don't have a lot of sit-down restaurants, because the cost is just overwhelming, and not a lot of people have that investment capability to be able to offer such a thing. So it's a good experience for my students as well, and I use it in service learning. And my online students this year are actually going to be involved in the high school project. So I'm getting to give them an equivalent experience, but not the same type. But I actually will van all of my students up to the Sportsplex for them to judge. There is an oral presentation. The students will stand in front of the judges, and they'll do a short couple of minutes, usually 3 to 5 minute presentation, where they tell all about their specific project. There is a prototype or a representative of the product because, you know, sometimes it's hard if you're a service to have a prototype per se. If you massage someone, if you offer massages or if you offer mowing or something like that, you really can't have the actual product, but you can have a representative of it. You know, a picture of you doing it or maybe some other type of representative of it. Video. Yes, video. Yeah, exactly. And so that's what we've learned to kind of do, but my judges may need help in identifying that, so I've covered some areas I think in the rubrics and different things that's going to help with that to make that fairer. Marketing examples. Students amaze me in that they are so creative. They'll have posters, they'll have advertisements, social media, jingles. You know, they do a lot of different things, and they'll have samples of that so that my students can see how they've, you know, gotten the word out about their project. And then business community partners. We encourage you to take the opportunity to bring in people from the community to help in judging, to help in mentoring, or to give, you know, just experiences and share those with the students because it brings it to reality. I do caution and I do say, find someone with a positive attitude. Because sometimes, you know, they may not give your students the optimism and the support perhaps that they need, and we need to make sure that they're encouraging. But it's a good way for you to get people in your classroom, and anytime you can bridge that community education gap, it's I think a valuable tool. And so I say the purpose is to share, mentor, judge if needed, or offer suggestions based on years of experience, critique ideas, enhance the opportunity for community and school relations, but really to help the students better improve what they're creating from their experiences. Students give an oral presentation then, and you can have the actual businesses and individuals from those businesses judge if you want to, like a Shark Tank. I watched Shark Tank last night. I've watched it for the past couple of nights, which you never know what they will do. The ones they'll like, the ones they don't like, and that sort of thing. But it gives the students an opportunity. This young man, was he in any of yours? I can't remember what school he was from, but he created a welding device because he would hear his dad come home every day and say, you know, he would do such a good job welding, and then he'd have to stop at some point to rest and so forth. And when he would start back up, it would never be at the precise spot that he stopped because he couldn't get it exactly 100% right back. And so his son listened to this, I guess, years after years, you know, and he decided that's fixable. And so he created a device on a wheel that would hold the welding device exactly where it stopped. You could adjust the angle, and it would precisely put it at the exact place where it stopped because it would hold it there. And then he could start right back to the welding. And that's pretty impressive. And so the young man was trying to figure out a patent, but we know patenting is very complicated. That is one area that we need to have better resources for, because most generally it's a specialized area in law, and anybody you consult with wants money for it. And so that is something I'm trying to figure out, if I can get someone on retainer or someone to volunteer that kind of expertise for specific questions that you all have. I'm working on that. We had a position that is being reformulated, and I'm hopeful that in that maybe they'll have some connections and capabilities to help us. Have any of you who are returning had that issue? Okay. I know on the high school level we're going to. And so that's why I'm trying to prep for that, just in case. Creating the project. What do business and industry in my area want or need? And that could also be within your school. That could be among the students. You know, we're going to do a little activity later today that's identifying that need or that gap or that area of concern where you can introduce a product. And I think that that's a hard thing. Figuring out what your students want to actually create is probably the greatest challenge. How much startup money will I need? Where will it come from? I know that in some situations, parents are offering that to students, and that's okay, but I would encourage you to encourage them to get paid back. It's helping them understand there's a true cost to whatever it is. How much interest will I have to repay? And again, that's to be worked out with whomever it is that's providing the money. Maybe it's you. Maybe through the grant, you actually get a few resources that students need, whether that's maybe the trifolds, or whether that's advertising materials, or whether that's whatever the case may be, then they may have to pay you back. And would there be interest in that? You know, that sort of thing. So it's things to think through. How much will I need to charge to make a profit? We're going to do a little activity later today about that very thing. The whole versus the half versus a fraction. You know, because I could offer something to you, I could offer this binder as a whole. Well, maybe it's not so much the binder, but the sheets, so maybe I'll split up the binder, and I could sell different parts of it for different prices because maybe you only need pieces of it. Which would be best for me? The whole, which is very expensive, the half, which may be helpful and less expensive, or even a smaller part than that. Which is going to help you? And so it's hard to price things, but you have to consider what's the best route to go. You know, just like in stores, is it volume at a low price, or is it a very high price to begin with? And I always tell people, you can always lower it, but you generally can't raise it. So you got to be real careful how you set your price in the beginning, because if we start off low and try to raise it, people think you're gouging them. Price gouging. But then if I have it too high and I'm lowering it, they're going to wonder a little bit about its value. So there's all kinds of thought that goes into that. In the middle school curriculum, now, for those of you that are new, pull out that little book. And we'll look through it briefly. For those of you that are returning, you know what the book offers. But this is the chapters of the book, and it's simply getting started, deciding what and how many to produce, producing the product, marketing and selling, and closing the business doesn't necessarily mean closing unless you choose that, you know, maybe your students will want to continue and that sort of thing, but it does help you look at the costs, the revenues, and the profits. And so that's, when we say closing, it's really coming to the end of the cycle before the competition, where you can actually see what they made. Now, that could be real or estimated, because some of your students are going to actually sell, and some of your students may only take orders. And it may be an estimated, depending on your time, depending on the circumstances, and how you run the project. But essentially, you've got determine what's going to be investigated, formulate the question or hypothesis. For you all, that's what are we going to produce? You know, what's needed. Gather as much information about the topic from appropriate sources. So whomever your customers or potential customers are, you would go to them and you would try to question them and really find out. Maybe it's a snack. Maybe your students believe that there is a need for snacks at the school of some kind. And then maybe they'll question students on, well, you know, at midday before or after lunch, you know, when you're starving, what might be something you'd like? And so then they find out, somebody will say candy and somebody will say some crackers probably. Analysis is examine and discuss the findings and provide explanations or clarity. And then finally the conclusions. So that would help you get to the point of what do I want to offer, what do I believe is in need, or what do I believe others will want to buy from me. So now here is the part for returning teachers to share with the new teachers, because in some cases you're all in varied disciplines. You know, you're teaching in math, you're teaching in science, you're teaching in social studies in different areas, so everybody's going to have a different approach slightly. Some involve different teachers to kind of help them with different components of this, and some do it themselves. But for instance, I'm going to walk you through the curriculum, and if at any time returning teachers want to say something or an idea comes to your mind that might be helpful to the new teachers, let me know. But for instance, in social studies, where in the world was this good or service ever sold? Did it have an effect on the economy of the area? In what time period was it sold? What was the economy of that area like at the time? Are there major modes of transportation in the area to help with production? In science, is there a chemical, mechanical, technological, or agricultural reaction? Can it be altered to be more efficient? English language arts gets into the business description, the rationale, the presenting, what marketing, jingle, script, or website was created. All that has writing components and thought and analytical thought processes in it. Math, market survey graphs, the profit loss calculations, the interest on the loan calculations, rental agreements. The arts, marketing signs and banners, jingle and music. Technology, website creation, the advertising via social media and brochures describing the project, and that again gets back into the English and language arts. And then the teacher support, so partnerships with businesses, they assist students in finding a business, willingness to mentor or even serve as judges, but giving that constructive feedback where they can improve and make improvements as needed. The support, and I have Kelly on here. Andrew is the new Kelly, so I'll replace Kelly with Andrew. The grant support comes through. I have an endowment that I am pulling from also, along with the KVEX grants that they're making available to the districts. Technology support, prize money for the varying levels, and I think we did 50, 60, 70, so we'll repeat that this year. I told the high school, that students a long time ago I learned like money, a whole lot better than a certificate or a pen. Then what does the teacher do? Who's teaching what? Facilitate the learning within the classroom, create opportunities for students to research and interact with successful small businesses, create small groups for learning experiences as needed, and determine if grades are going to be used and how they're going to be used and how you're going to grade them. Like Norm illustrated that he needed that final reflection piece. And that gets back into English language arts. You may need a specific component, and how would that work? Okay. And then here's another area to consider. Will students actually sell? If they will, under what circumstances? If they do, what will the money go towards? I've seen it done different ways, sometimes individually, because throughout the whole amount, they'll share it with their team or their partners, and also to do something for the class. Maybe they're really wanting to go somewhere and there's no money. And so they'll pull the money together, the profits, after they paid back all their costs and expenses, and they'll actually go on a field trip. So it's for the class. So, I would set that up right up front. What will be done with the revenue? So here, pay loans, give to charity of choice, split it, give to the school, give to the class, fund a field trip, help future group with needs. Make sure to have specific guidelines about this. And in terms of parents, make sure they understand and you keep them involved as needed. Faculty training, you're here today. We're only going to 2. I think that we can work it out. Curriculum and other training materials, you have the binder. Training treats teachers just like the students. We're going to do an activity just like they will be doing essentially, which gives you all the new people an idea then of how you might approach the beginnings. It transforms each year. This year, like I said, I talked to Andrew and we thought that STEAM was very important instead of just STEM, that we felt like art should be input because there's so much emphasis now on the STEAM side. And so we try to change as grants change, as the needs change, we try to update. The one thing that we've tried to incorporate over time is a time, health, energy, or innovation component. And we can discuss that more as well. And so we look for that in addition to the STEAM. And I have included in the documents a page specifically for that. I've tried to do that in the past with STEM, but I've actually tried to recreate that and improve upon that so that judges, as they're scanning through, will better capture that and will understand. If you remember in the rubric, for those of you returning, there's a place that says technology. That doesn't mean the STEM part. It's like, did you use some kind of technology to prepare everything? Like, did you use word processing? And so I've tried to bring that out so that the judges can interpret whether it was a technology use or a STEAM technology. Implementation, what it takes, commitment. It takes all of us working together. The curriculum is applied. You allow enough time as a teacher to make sure that you can get it done in the time allotted. Students do the work and they complete it on time, and then you build in enough time to have the school or district fair. I went 1 week later. We're after Thanksgiving. that is the last week that I could do it because I lose all the students. Finals week, you couldn't capture them to save your life. But that last week, I can. And we're going to talk about the day. I prefer not Monday because we're coming back, and that would be detrimental because half of my students may not even remember they're back. But if we could do it on the Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, because I don't think Fridays are good days for people either. But I know you all have different things going on at your schools and things, so I want you to look, and we'll do that at the end of the day, but we'll set the day today so that we can go ahead and reserve it. This is kind of the past history. If you're curious, we started in 2013 with 1 county. By 2016, we had 7 counties and 3 independent districts. 6,006 students had participated. 800 businesses were created, and 232 were showcased at the regional competition, and 230 of my students had participated over time. So that gives you a little background. This was my first high school project last year. It was our first one, and so this is kind of how we did it. Knott County Central won. Don't Be Coy. They had a koi farm. They raised koi. The second place was Hazard High School with the Game of Science, helping students understand and learn science concepts and terms and efforts by a board game. And then Phelps High School had a group of students that actually went around and did commercials for people. And so they actually had their own production company. So that was kind of the high school experience. And then these are the young ladies I talked about with the cosmetics. They ground their own powders. They experimented. They surveyed people. They found out the right colors. They wore what they produced. Did not break them out, so they had to really consider a lot of factors. And they actually had profitable returns. And they learned it through YouTube. They actually watched a video on how to make makeup on YouTube. And then Asher, who I presented earlier, because I just think his was really listening to a need of an industry that could use what he created. And then this young man, is he from anybody's county? Yeah. I'm always so impressed with him. The confidence he exuded as he talked about his lemonade stand. And we think of lemonade stands, when we think entrepreneurship, we think lemonade stands. And I was just always so impressed with him. And my students would come over and say, "You got to meet this young man. He is just so proud of what he has created. And he's just, ecstatic, and he's contagious." And so I thought, I'm going to put him on there just to explain he's hearing impaired. And he just was amazing. And so that's what I'm talking about when you reach students that just take such great pride in what they've created. What do students gain? Valuable skills. I mean, it's 21st century skills, it's speaking skills, the list goes on in terms of the skill set gained from this professional experience. Students take advantage of future opportunities because as they progress into high school and beyond, there are all kinds of opportunities. STLP is in the middle school, and then the Governor's Academy for Entrepreneurship, and there are wonderful scholarship opportunities available with that as well. Future problem solving, Lieutenant Governor's Entrepreneurship Challenge, and there's $80,000 available with it. And so what your program does is it gives students the skill sets to then go into high school and matriculate and be able to then have the same skill sets that they can apply on a little higher level to go on into the Lieutenant Governor's Challenge. And we will have, I believe, this year, some of the high school participants will do our competition in the fall, and then December is the deadline just to say you're interested in Lieutenant Governors, and they'll go on into that. And so it's just a nice opportunity to be able to take one and improve and get the ideas and figure it out and maybe advance it on. Okay? And then the value of the project to you, direct impact on students in the region, within local communities, real economic improvement opportunity. Wouldn't it be nice if some of the students that you've had come back to that community and open up businesses, whether it be in what they originally did with you or some skill that they've developed as they've gone through college and turned into a wonderful adult and want to come back to our region. That's what we hope for. So tie-ins to curriculum requirements, whether it be math or language arts or other, good way to build and enhance school and community relations, connecting business leaders and mentors to students who may be mentors for the rest of their lives. And then provides project-based learning focused on real-world applications to improve our communities. place. So that's kind of what the project is. Thank you to KVEC, our College of Business and Technology, the Booth Endowment, and the Booth Entrepreneurship Center. Now, let's get into your book, and I'll walk you through the book itself and then the changes. So let's get into our book, and let me set up here where I can kind of walk through. Okay, so the first thing you've got when you open it up is you have the table of contents. Well, you all actually have a page that says, it's a cover page. Then you have the table of contents, and everything's kind of laid out. The read me first, a letter to the teachers. You actually have my PowerPoint that I presented this morning. And then as you go on through, you're going to have a PowerPoint that I am not going to do with you because I feel like walking through is better. You know, I've always done this with the teachers. So new teachers, I actually think it's better to kind of walk you through physically this book than actually showing you a PowerPoint about what all these things are. I really think it's going to help you more. So once you get through that PowerPoint, because it is there for new people, just to kind of reinforce. But then you've got tab 1. And tab 1, it says read me first. It kind of highlights that I want you to do a pre and post, that there's a student packet in the back that actually has all the forms and that sort of thing. And it kind of just walks you through some instructions and information. We just flip on through. So that's just kind of a page that kind of lays everything out for you, the read me first. And then it talks about the entrepreneurial fair, a little flyer. So this is just kind of informational. Tab 2 gets into Am I an Entrepreneur? And the reason I put this in, and this was pulled from another resource, this was pulled from something we did, Entrepreneurs in Kentucky, because I think the one thing the curriculum's lacking is definitely it doesn't do a good job in kind of introducing what is entrepreneurship, what kind of skills are associated with it, you know, would I want to be an entrepreneur, that sort of thing. So this lesson, I think, does a good job doing that. You can use parts of it. You could use all of it. It's there for you to use as needed. And then 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all about the book. So for those of you who are new, if you open up your book to, like it says in tab 3, chapter 2, that's the first chapter that you would start with your students. So the next tab then goes into the following chapter of the book, and it's called Producing the Product. Now, getting into then the chapter 4, Marketing the Product. And that's probably one of the most fun for the students, I think, is doing their advertising and marketing and figuring out how to best sell it to their public. Chapter 5 then focuses on closing the business, but like I said, you don't have to close just because the business, that chapter is called that. You know, that's just giving you the opportunity at that point to figure out what were your revenues on different categories and different items, and this is actually one of the forms used in there, and this is on page 65 for those of you who are new in the book. And it says then there's a profit worksheet that actually focuses on then what was the revenue, what were the costs, and as a result, what's left over, and that's your profit. We're back out of the book, and so this puts us at tab 7. And then this is the actual forms the students will fill out that relate to the business. So the first is 7.1, and it's just the basic, I call it the business plan, because it actually just lays out the details of the business. The name of the company, the address, whether I'm a sole proprietor or partner, who owns the business, goals, description, financial information, and then overall the marketing plan. And then all these other things included are the support. So the next page is a partnership agreement. Now, these are the changes I've made on the form to help the judges and to listen to what you all are telling me. All of these forms are going to be included in your folder. So notice I say it says partnership agreement, applicable or not. And it's got Form 7.2. Right under it says, if your business is not a partnership, then please circle the legal set that best reflects what your business is. And so then that lets our judges know it wasn't applicable, circle not, it wasn't applicable, and I am a whatever. And then they don't have to fill out the rest of the form, but they're going to get their points. Okay? That just helps our judges know that no, they're not, but they took care of that form. They're a different thing, but that enables them to know that they passed it. They did the work necessary. Okay, then you've got a market survey data collection. Everybody will fill out. 7.5 then is actually graphing the results and kind of seeing where they are. And you will always, I have college students who do demand and supply, and they will sometimes not do a traditional curve like they're supposed to. And I'm like, what went wrong? This doesn't make any sense. And so sometimes you have those outliers no matter what because they're manipulating in some way. And so that's, but hopefully maybe my suggestion or maybe some of their suggestions will help that situation. Then the advertising form, so it lets the judges actually see what they've done, how they've done it, maybe even an example of it. And then now the loan agreement. Again, this is one of those forms that may or may not be used. And so the loan agreement, 7.7, it says, if not used, write not applicable on top. So again, I'm giving instructions so that it's still included in the folder, but my judges then will know to look for that. And I do ask that you all do that. That way it identifies, no, we didn't do this, but it is not applicable, but they filled it out. They're going to get credit.
We will get the digital version of
Yes, yes. And then the other is the rental agreement. And again, I encourage you to charge rent. I encourage you to have them take out a loan of some sort from somebody, from a parent, even if it's sort of pretend. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe mom and dad go to the grocery store and they buy the ingredients, but still the student's going to have to pay them back, to at least illustrate that it's not all free. Now maybe they could borrow the pans and different things that they might have or need, but still it's important, I think, to get across that there is a charge somehow. So whether that be loan, whether that be rental, whether that be both, I would really like to see you all use these if you could work it in smoothly. The product cost computation sheet, and then sales revenue, and of course this is by item, and it's just a record keeping. That's just the record keeping. Then on page 12 it says the profit worksheet, and this is where you get in revenues minus costs equals profits. Because a lot of times students think that profits are the revenues. And even my college students get mixed up on that. So sales is not profits. Okay, then the next page, and this is not new, but it's adapted, and it has the art in it, so it's the STEAM. It says technology is a category of the rubric separate from STEAM. In the rubric, judges are advised to look for technological uses to prepare the plan and or advertise the product of the business. Below, you are to designate STEAM from technology use. So I thought this would be clearer for your students and then clearer for my judges to be able to see what they're doing. So, what components of STEAM did you use? How are these components connected to your business project? What technology did you use to specifically prepare your plan and or promote your business? Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Photoshop, whatever. Some may use 3D printers, to make the prototype. So all that can go there. And so that way my judges, I'm going to specifically make them look. STEAM and technology. That's what you need to look at, because this one answers the technology rubric part and the other answers the STEAM part. And then which STEAM focal point did you use? Innovation, time, energy, and health. And almost everything should fit in those in some way. If it's bakery, it could be health, it could be time, depending, If it is some kind of exercise, dancing, music, it could be energy. So there's a lot of flexibility. This is just allowing your students to tell my judges so they know, because that's one that's kind of sometimes overlooked or missed. And then that completes the details of the folder. Then in tab 8, it's an explanation of the competition guidelines. It's me asking you to do the pre and post testing. Then there's an application. And then the next page is just a continuance of putting together the fair, and then the next page is the display. So on the display, this is moving it a little more towards high school and a little more towards the lieutenant governors, where we see who is the ideal customer, what advantage do they have, what are they using for marketing, the name and the problem they're solving. The solution is the product or service, so what exactly is it? And a value proposition. And that was one, the value proposition is brand new for you all. And the value proposition is, and maybe I need to give you a reading or something on that. It's the benefits, but it goes beyond just benefits. It's how the product and service is offering you something that perhaps no other product is offering. So it goes beyond benefits. It may be the way you feel about it. It may be the way you think about it, but it has to offer more for it to be enduring than just a benefit. So it's about the whole package. And then team members and just their roles, legal structure. So it doesn't have to be a sentence. It could be partnership, sole proprietorship. For team members, Susie Jane, CEO. Mark Wilder, accountant. Just that type of thing. Financial fundamentals, and the first one I did, I actually had it reverse. I had cost minus revenues and didn't catch it. And, I figured it out. Okay, revenues minus costs equal to profit. And is it estimated or real? You would just put estimated under, or you'd put real. That just lets me know, my judges know, did they really do it? So then maybe their questions might be geared towards that versus you actually took orders and those types of things. It would be a different set of questions. Okay? And then it says prototype or representation of service on the table with the description. Just a little description to help them really know this is your prototype. You could even lay the description right under it where the prototype's laying on it and tilted so that you can see what it is. The next one is also an improvement. Student competition guidelines. Before I've given kind of the presentation do's and don'ts, but I went one step further. Oral presentation skills, do's and don'ts, I added some things, and then I also went into an example of a pitch. So let me kind of talk you through there. This is where it starts with there is no right or wrong way to present the elevator pitch. And then the written forms, guidelines, just walks you through all the forms. And again, they're in there because this is your teacher packet. And finally, in the student side, it's the student competition guidelines, which walks through everything that I just told you about, the written forms, the display, and then the judges' criteria.